Hello everyone, I'm Brian, welcome back, let's continue.
or to affirm or to assert or deny. It's the one indubitable reality that never changes, regardless of what the mind, the body, or the outside world is doing. So, the whole method of Vedanta is to say certain things merely for the purpose of teaching. But in the end, all it can do is negate whatever it said in the beginning.
That's,
Whatever the teaching is in the beginning, in the end, it has to negate it because the final teaching of Vedanta is there's only the self in truth.
I'm laughing because it's it seems contradictory. It's like, well, everything you learn once you get to the end means nothing, or it's negated. It's really weird, but and to some degree, I think understand it. Only because I don't know completely the teachings of Vedanta. I know I know the ultimate reality. Again, know versus well, or is it understand? Anyways, I understand. I guess maybe I understand. Maybe I know. I'm not sure what the right terminology will be, but I do understand or know about Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta specifically. But like I don't know everything about it to understand that you negate everything or the beginning part of it. But he's saying that it's kind of funny. It's just because like you need these steps from the very beginning to the very end to learn about it. But then when you get to the end, he kind of negates the very beginning. It's like that's kind of weird. It's just funny to me, but at the same time, I do kind of understand it.
That means teacher teaching taught, knower knowing known, doer doing done, experiencer experienced experience. All of them have to be negated. They are all objects. They don't appear to you in deep sleep. They appear to you in waking. They're phenomena that have a beginning and an end. They're seen. They're not the seer. The ego is seen. It's not the seer. In order to reveal this, the only way, there is no other way except negating everything that's been superimposed on that self, on yourself. That's the method of Vedanta. There is no other method. Other than negating what it's not, there is no way to indicate what it is because it's not an object. When all the objects are negated, that witness which can't be negated, you can't even imagine its absence. If you try to think of the absence of consciousness, the consciousness will have to be there. To think of anything, presence or absence, consciousness is required.
I thought about this at the very beginning. I thought I might say something about it, maybe not. But it's a simple question, and it's something I'm genuinely curious about the answer to. So he keeps saying, but this is perhaps from the human perspective. He keeps saying that in order to do anything, consciousness must be there. But is it dependent on things? For example, the pen cannot do anything, but it is conscious, or it is consciousness. The pen has full awareness, but it's incapable of doing anything. Now, us as human beings, because we have a mind that can think, touch, do whatever, consciousness is then able to do something. But at the same time, the mind the mind itself can't do anything without consciousness. Like they're dependent on each other. This one only doesn't have a mind, so therefore consciousness can't do anything other than to be a pure awareness. But with a mind and a body, then consciousness can do things because it's making the mind and the body aware of things. I don't know. Um, as I watch a lot of his videos, I think more and more into this. Some questions do come up, and something I genuinely would love to know the answer to. Definitely got to write to Swami Taratmananda for questions. But anyways,
Now we can have a long discussion about, is consciousness really unchanging? Is it really beyond time? Or is
because from my understanding with consciousness, it doesn't make decisions either. It is pure awareness and awareness alone. And that kind of makes a lot more sense to me than saying that, without consciousness you can't make decisions, you can't do all these things. But maybe I am not fully understanding him, and I think this might be the case here, is that without consciousness there is no decision making to be had, even though consciousness itself does not make decisions. It just makes you aware of those decisions and therefore then capable of making those decisions. Without it, there's no decisions to be made. But it's not the fact that consciousness itself allows you to make, perhaps, maybe allows you, but consciousness itself does nothing to the decision making outside of just being aware of it. It's a really hard way to phrase that. But I hope you understand what I'm coming at with that.
is it just another phenomena in the world? People have consciousness. Rocks don't have consciousness. Is that the nature? So these are doubts that people have when they hear this teaching about the self is consciousness. In deep sleep, it seems like I lose my consciousness. If you hit me over the head with a bat and I go into a coma, I don't have consciousness. It comes back if I'm lucky. So consciousness is not unchanging. This is the idea that we naturally have, that in fact, consciousness is not different than our minds.
Consciousness is not different than our minds. Uh-oh. He says rocks don't have consciousness, but rock is consciousness. Because, anyways.
It's our minds that are conscious. And in deep sleep, the mind stops functioning and I have no consciousness. When the mind starts functioning, I become conscious again. So therefore, consciousness doesn't seem like what you said it was. That it's the only reality, that it never changes.
I'll have to disagree with him here, actually. Our mind does not stop functioning when we go to sleep. It's fully still functioning. The thing that happens in our mind is that there is a lot of, again, I'm not a brain scientist, but I do believe that obviously they've studied people that go to sleep. They have electrodes in their head to see the brain activity. So the one thing that they've said, and I've learned now, hopefully it's still true, is that when you go to sleep, that's when your short-term memory gets converted to long-term memory, and so then it kind of explains the dream, where you start everything that you've gone through today that you still remember from your short-term memory gets converted to long-term memory and reinforces those connections in your brain. So to me, that's how you kind of explain dreams, is that you're constantly firing this pattern in your brain, which some of those patterns probably are a similar pattern to a memory that you've had. Not exactly. That's the reason why when you think about things, they're not exactly right. Yeah, you have this person here, but then you're in Alaska and have dragons in the sky. It's like, wow, this not exactly what I remember in real life, but I know that person. I seen that show, and that's where I wanted to go. Now we're all here. So that's the way I think. How because when your brains are just firing in your minds for memory to remember long-term memory, it just happens to trigger certain things, and at certain moments you just become aware of it. So, or you're always aware of it. Sorry, but but your brain doesn't remember it. So you're always aware, like consciousness, and it's just a matter of whether your brain happens to record you remembering your dream. It's like so, and that's the reason why, which would make sense to me, in my opinion, that whenever we have multiple dreams, the scientists say that we have at least 2 to 3 dreams every single day. Now, I think that's probably on average. I'm sure there are some people out there who don't have any dreams, and there's some people out there that has like 18 dreams a night and don't remember a single bit of it. I do remember sometimes. I remember both 2 dreams. I remember waking up like, oh my god, I remember that dream. I go back to sleep, wake up the next day, like, oh my gosh, I had another dream. I thought I'd continue the other one, but but we generally have about an average of 2 dreams. So it would make sense that we don't remember them. And the reason why we don't remember them because our brain is not trying to remember them. And that's the reason why we may be conscious or pure awareness during those events of the dreams, but because we don't remember them, it's because we don't record them in our mind. In our mind.
That it's pure bliss. So the method of Vedanta is to remove all of the misconceptions that we have about ourselves, and nothing more remains to be done. Because when the misconceptions are gone, the self, which doesn't need anything to make it known, because it's self-known, it's the one thing that doesn't have to be objectified to be known. Everything else has to become an object of knowledge. But the subject doesn't need another subject to know that it's the subject.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that you're the subject? How do you know the object? Because I'm the subject. How do you know you're the subject?
I know things.
Self-evident. It doesn't need something to objectify.
It's because, and maybe another explanation here to help here is the because you are objectifying things. So the subject objectify things. I objectify the pen, for example. The reason why the pen's not the subject because I am aware of the pen itself. So therefore, the pen itself is the object, and the thing that's aware of the pen is the subject.
In fact, if there was something that objectified consciousness, it would have to be another consciousness. And that would have to be objectified by another consciousness. And you'd wind up with what's called a regress ad infinitum. And you'd never wind up with who's the final knower? Who's the conscious one? But we know that we are the subject. And we don't need another witnessing consciousness to validate that fact.
Was it me?
There's a saying in those who know the tradition of Vedanta that goes like this. Adiaropa apavada vyam nishprapancham prapanchate. That which is devoid of all qualities, that witness has that consciousness is not round or square or dark or green or tall, or it has no qualities, nirguna. That which is bereft of all qualities is taught by the method of deliberate superimposition. a deliberate, we naturally superimpose this body, mind, senses on the self. But the teacher and the teaching deliberately superimposes certain ideas, such as you don't know your true self. You have to purify your mind and turn inwards and realize your true nature. None of that is true. If there's only the self, nobody had to turn their mind in, nobody had to realize the self, nobody ever realized the self, there was nobody who didn't realize the self. So in the end, all of that, even that teaching about ignorance and knowledge, bondage and liberation, freedom from suffering, all of that, none of it is true. If only the self exists, then none of that could be true. So in the end, those ideas that we used merely for the purpose of teaching certain ideas in order to remove grosser misconceptions. But in the end, even those ideas have to be negated. Not this, not this. This is the self, which is not this, not this. There is no higher teaching than not this, not this. There's another famous sutra in the tradition that goes like this. Siddham tu nivartakatvat. This teaching is valid. This teaching is competent to reveal the self. Siddham, it's competent. It's established. Why? Nivartakatvat, because it negates. It's a valid means of knowledge for the self because it negates all the misconceptions that I'm a knower, that there's a world that's known, that I have knowledge of that world. All of those are false misconceptions that in the end, because only the self is the one reality that never changes, it's always present, it's ever shining, that has no bondage and needs no freedom, that is not bored. In the self, there's no time. It's not, a changeless state in which I don't do anything. That sounds boring. From the waking point of view, if you put that state as though it's a long time and you're there and you're not doing anything, that's boring. But in the self, there's no you and no time to which you could say, this is all boring. In deep sleep, nobody's bored. From the waking point of view, it may look boring. But the actual state in which there's no subject and no object and no time and no space, there's the concept of boring, which is a waking state concept, can't find entry into deep sleep.
A waking state concept. Again, this is kind of the reason for my argument a little bit earlier, especially towards the end of my last video about about someone being born, but they have none of the five senses are working. The brain is active, the body's breathing and alive. There's a lot of processes that are automatic. So basically, if you question how is this person living? Well, it's very easy. We can feed people, feed them nutrients and water, and the body automatically poops and pees, so you have to worry about that. and and the breathing's automatic as well, because obviously when you go to sleep, you're not manually breathing. But the, the reason, I guess the boredom. I like to separate the mind and the mind and the ego, the mind and the consciousness. He seems to have combined it here, but to me it makes more sense if the pure consciousness or Brahman and the mind is separate. The mind itself can get bored. Consciousness itself is unaffected by emotions, no boredom, no sadness, no happiness. So when you look at it that way, it makes perfect sense as to why when the mind is kind of shut down, in the sense, like you're saying, when you go to sleep because it's doing other processes, um, you're not bored because the ego is asleep. You could say the mind is asleep. I guess maybe I'll separate the mind too. The mind and ego being the same, but the brain. I guess the brain is the thing I'm really trying to say here. The brain has an auto mode essentially when we go to sleep, where it does the processes, the breathing, the digestion, the hair growth, the whatever else our body needs automatically. Our mind slash ego is the one that essentially shuts down when we go to sleep. But our pure consciousness is always purely aware of everything. It's always awareness. and And then that's the reason why boredom exists, is because it's not attached to consciousness, it's attached to the ego or to the mind. The brain itself is a bit different. All the brain is memory. That's all the brain, automatic features too. But essentially it's just a big memory bank, and has automatic features that, hair growth and hunger and whatever else.
So, having said what the method of Vedanta is, and there is no other method, there are very many different varieties in this teaching that are subsumed under this one method of deliberately saying something, and then in the end, whatever was said, that also gets negated. A couple of examples. One example, people who have studied a little bit of the traditional teachings may have been familiar with some of these methods. One method is called the method of the 5 sheaths. The body sheath, the mind sheath, the life breath sheath, the intellectual sheath, and then the bliss sheath. These are called the 5 sheaths. And through this method, you can realize the self. There's another method that's called the method of the seer and the seen. Drik Drishya Viveka. Who is the seer and what is seen? And to discriminate and decide that even this body, mind, senses, and ego are the seen, and I'm the seer.
He says ego here. He hasn't used that. I don't believe he's used that word yet here. Which I would separate the mind and combine mind and ego as one and the same. Because brain is different. Brain is the physical junk, and the mind is the neural activity, in a sense you could say, the one that actually makes the decisions in the brain, the one that actually gets affected by emotions, affected by the material world, 100%. Do I want to write right now? Should I click this? Like so. Should I start writing my alphabet? Should I go out tomorrow? That's all the ego. Should I? It's the false I, but it's the ego I. and not the true you, which is pure awareness.
This is called the Trikdarshi, the method of the seer and the seen. There's another method that's called the method of cause and effect.
Karma?
That reality, yourself, is the cause for this whole manifestation. The whole universe manifests from you. So you are the cause, and the universe is the effect. And then by showing that the effect is just a play of words, like the clay is the cause, and the pot and the vase and the plate are the effect. But in fact, what you call pot, plate, or vase is nothing but clay. Those names, Vacharambanam, they're just names. You call it a pot because of the utility, a vase because it holds the flowers, a plate, you serve the food. But it's nothing but clay. The other things are just names and forms. The truth is clay alone. In the same way, the self is the cause, the world is the effect. The effect is just a name because the effect is nothing in truth but the cause. So when only the cause exists in truth, it's not even a cause. And that negates the cause and effect. It's another methodology. The self doesn't cause anything. But because you think there's a world, the teaching is this world comes from the self. It abides in the self. It merges back into the self. That teaching is only to teach that the only reality is the self alone. And there are other methods, but they're all the same methodology because in the end, there's no cause and effect. There are no 5 sheets. There's no division between the seer and the seen. But of all the methods that are used in this tradition, there is one method that stands out because it's the easiest, it's the most convincing,
Bhakti?
and it applies to everybody universally. And this is called the method of the 3 states: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Now, exactly what this method is, waking, dream, and deep sleep, is a very extensive topic. It's not a simple thing. Most people think like this: oh, this is my waking. I'm awake and I'm aware of the world, which is real, and this is the reality here in the waking. And it's common to all the people, not just me. Other people live in the same world that I am aware of. But then at night, I have a private experience in my waking world, in the 24 hours of my waking world. There's a period where I have a dream. My mind, this mind in the waking world saw somebody or experienced something, and then at night I go to sleep and my mind creates a world private to me. Nobody else can see this world. And it appears in the queerest ways. It violates all the laws of the waking state. I'm flying. I chopped my head off and I'm talking to it on my lap. My friend just turned into a chicken, but it's my friend that I saw in that afternoon, and the chicken he told me about he ate. So the waking is the cause for the dream, and it's just a part of the whole waking, a small section. And then for a while, I don't dream. I just blank out and I get rest. And I wake up. If I was in a good deep sleep, I'm refreshed and I'm once again aware of the same world. The dreams every night are different, but every day I wake up to the real world that has all of the history and all the science, and the real world once again appears to me. That fantasy world that I imagined in dream has ceased, even though at the time I may have been fooled by it and thought that it was really waking. But as soon as I woke up, I realized what it was, just a creation of my mind. But this world is not a creation of my mind because I see it with my senses, and other people see it with their senses. And the things in the world have causal efficacy. If it's really water, it quenches my thirst. If it's really fire, it gives me heat.
His dream state is the subjective reality. Even though you know it's just a dream, it's still something subjective, specialized to you. What you see, what you experience personally, that most other people don't experience, is your subjective reality. When you're in the waking world, this is essentially the objective reality, the fire, the water, and then the perhaps a deep sleep is perhaps the ultimate reality, where it's pure, unadulterated, pure consciousness.
So this is how we look at the three states.
Actually, I'm gonna pause it right there. Perfect timing. He does have other videos. Part 1, 2, 3, I believe. Amazingly, the introduction. It's not part 1, but luckily enough, I found it. It will be. I will be reacting to those as well, but not after this one. I will be going back to a normal schedule, and then whenever I get back to him, I will then get the first part. Um, there's only one disagreement with him. It was about the mind and the consciousness, saying the mind and consciousness being the same. But I don't know if he genuinely means that or is just trying to help people understand in terms of the Western perspective. Trying to find where it's at. Oh, that's not definitely not there. Can't remember where it was at.
Consciousness is not different than our minds. It's
Oh, it's not different than our minds. I don't know if he necessarily means it's the same as our minds either, but he's probably saying that it's similar in some ways, perhaps. So I'm not sure what he really means here. I don't know if he means consciousness and the minds are essentially the same, or they are the same, or not. Maybe, or saying that there are similarities, but they're not, the same. And I explained my thoughts on that earlier. So again, in order for me to fully understand how he talks, what he means when he says these words, I definitely have to watch more of his videos. If he does have a dedicated channel, let me know in the comments, because I looked. Then again, I did just look at his name, and I looked at a few things, and it seems like it's spread throughout many different channels. So anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up the side, and below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vid.